Hello, welcome to episode 13 of the Brand Spotlight. Welcome, Gabe.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe.
Sure, so in this interview, we will be speaking to Gabe Locke, Chief Business Development Officer and founding team member at Quokka Brew Jitterless Coffee. Thank you so much one more time. This episode is being streamed live, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and LinkedIn Live, all on the Brand Spotlight channel. Just search for it. Thank you so much, whoever is joining us. And the replays will be available as an audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc. And you could just search your favorite podcast player for the Brand Spotlight. I will first introduce our sponsor. That's the agency I've been building up over the last several years, Brands Connect. That's Brands with a Z, BRANDZ. And what we focus on is doing specifically the marketing portion of the business development cycle. And we custom tailor marketing campaigns to specific brands. We found that every brand needs a specific marketing campaign that's custom tailored to them. We specialize in crafting those. Without further ado, let's get right into the interview with Gabe Locke, Chief Business Development Officer and founding member of Quokka Brew Jitterless Coffee. I'll start the way we always start. If in a sentence or two, how would you describe your brand?
So Quokka Brew is the market's first caffeinated jitterless and crashless coffee. So all of the energy, all the caffeine, but none of the negative side effects like the jitters, the anxiety, or the midday crash.
So jitterless coffee, you got that buzzword you captivated me at that.
Yeah. So jitterless coffee, a lot of people when they hear it, they're like, oh, it must be decaffeinated coffee, right? Because how can you have a caffeinated product that doesn't give you the jitters, those feelings of being on edge? But the way that we've been able to achieve that here at Quokka Brew is we add in the active ingredients found in green tea and matcha. So you're getting the calming, soothing effects of tea on one hand, but with the energy and caffeine of coffee on the other. So you're really able to bring these two worlds together. So you do feel uplifted, you do feel energized, but at no point in the cycle do you feel on edge or anxious, or eventually, after a couple hours after drinking, crashing.
Cool. Wow. That's so does it taste more like coffee or more like matcha and green tea?
Yeah, so that's actually really interesting because it does taste, I would say, a little bit more like coffee, but it is a latte and it is an oat milk latte. So there is subtle hints of coffee in there, but then a lot of people do mention that they do taste a little bit of green tea. And we do add green tea leaf extract, ginseng, and L-theanine, and those are the active components from the tea. And then we do have a cold brew blend sourced from Colombia. So we're able to bring, these things together and mix them up. But really at the end of the day, it does just taste like an oat milk latte. So we have two flavors currently. We have a vanilla oat milk latte and a chocolate cereal milk latte. And that is also made with oat milk, but it really does taste like the milk at the end of your chocolate cereal is, kind of what we were going for.
So let's get a little bit into the products, which you already started going to. Typically, a coffee company it used to be just coffee. Now we're getting very fancy these days. That coffee can mean a lot of different things. It sounds like you've chosen to go to the latte path. Can you describe what a latte is as opposed to a coffee?
Yeah. So if you're just getting a coffee, that is generally, some people take it black with like a little bit of milk, but a latte is basically half milk, half coffee. So it is definitely very dialed down coffee. You can think more like cappuccino, except without the steamed and foamed milk. So it's a lot more subtle, right? So a lot of people when they drink a latte, they're kind of getting that coffee, but it's like very dialed down. So for people that don't really like the taste of coffee, a latte is a great way to go if they still want that energy.
Yeah, I actually got really into lattes because I noticed that the milk or the oat milk, which is now all the rage,
Mhm.
really is able to fill me up a lot more. So I get a little bit of satiation aside from the caffeine, which I'm always obviously going for.
Mhm.
And I always joke I that lattes are coffee flavored milk as opposed to milk as opposed
Yeah,
to anything else.
pretty much. And for a lot of people, when they drink just black coffee, it's very acidic and it can be very harmful for your stomach. So by adding in milk or even oat milk, which is even lighter and more watery or watered down than normal milk, it's a lot lighter. So for people that experience acid reflux or just, their stomach just doesn't feel so good after drinking coffee, I'd recommend trying an oat milk latte.
Yeah, and I've actually had one of yours. I was able to verify through some back channels that it was good for my. I have some dietary restrictions,
Mhm.
um, kosher, which we'll discuss later. But I know your first production, I was able to verify that it was.
Mhm.
So that was cool, and the taste was amazing. It was really good. I really liked it. Uh,
Well,
so
thank you.
so so props for that, and that was already a few years ago.
Mhm.
So I want to dive a little deeper into the two products. A vanilla oat milk latte flavor that sounds somewhat traditional at this point. Cereal milk, that's a whole nother thing. Could we learn more about the cereal milk flavor and what that means?
Yeah, so as you said, the vanilla oat milk latte, that is our original. That was the first flavor that we came out with. And as everyone's aware, it is very mainstream, I guess, for lack of a better word. It's just very out there. It's been done a lot. People really love it and it tastes great. And that's kind of why it's so popular, I guess, which is great. But we wanted to shake things up a little bit and kind of make a product so that when it's on a retail shelf, someone would like turn their head and be like, wait a second, what is that? A cereal milk latte. I've never heard of that before. And that was really our goal with the chocolate cereal milk latte, was to make people so curious as to what that could taste like that they pick it off the shelf and they try it. And again, it really does taste like that end of the milk at the end of your bowl of cereal. Maybe if you're having like Cocoa Puffs or chocolate pebbles or something like that.
How did you come up with this idea?
Yeah. So it was one of my partners, George. He was thinking of a way to kind of shake it up a little bit. We were going through a lot of different ideas, and a cereal milk latte. I'd never heard of that before. I don't think anyone's really heard of that before. It's just so novel, and it makes you kind of scratch your head and go like, interesting. Like what would that even taste like? What even is a cereal milk latte? And you're going to keep asking yourself that question until you try our chocolate cereal milk latte, because the moment you try it, you understand immediately like, oh, okay, this is a cereal milk latte. And it really does taste like one.
I'm gonna push a little bit on this. I'm not such a flavor or profile guy, but
Mhm.
like when I was little and we used to, not often, but if we would somehow Fruity Pebbles would make it into our house, we would always want that sugar, that sweetness, that sugar. So is it that sweetness? Is it that sugar? What is it?
Yeah. So all of our products, they only have 5 grams of sugar, 60 calories, and it's all organic, all plant-based, vegan. And those 5 grams of sugar, 2 of them are coming from the oat milk. So then we're organically sweetened with monk fruit and cane sugar. So yeah, it is a little bit sweet. I don't think it's overpoweringly sweet. I think a lot of people that try it are really satisfied just with like the amount of sugar that is in it. And so no, I don't think it's as sweet as that milk that's left at the end of your cereal bowl. But it definitely has that like chocolatey taste, and that is from cacao powder. We're actually using organic cacao powder to get that, and it creates almost as well. It's pretty. I wouldn't say thick, but there's definitely a texture to it, um, which makes it really kind of like a really nice mouth feel. So with oat milk, it's really hard. This line that we kind of dance around. Oat milk is very watery and very light. So when you add that to coffee, you're not really adding as much fat as you would like to kind of round out that taste. And that's what milk does at the end of the day to your coffee. It adds that fat to round out that flavor, that texture, that mouthfeel. So we were asking ourselves, how could we do that with the chocolate cereal milk? And that the answer really came from the cacao powder. The cacao powder, when mixed with the coffee and the oat milk, gives it this texture that makes it almost a little bit creamy. And people have been noticing that and really, really enjoying that. And that's very different to our vanilla oat milk latte, which is a little bit less creamy. So definitely different mouthfeels there.
Is that going to be different than or how different is that going to be than any other coffee company that's mixed with cocoa or cacao and sells that as a blend? I mean, I've seen it. I haven't seen it take off, but how is your product different than that?
Yeah, well, our product is obviously different because of the functionality of it. It's jitterless, crashless, anxiety-free. But also, these other coffee companies, and I'll just name a couple, like Rebel is one of them. They have these like protein coffees, and they do taste like protein shakes. They're very thick. The texture is, it's kind of intense. We're definitely not that textured. But then again, if you just wanted to grab like a Rise or something like that, and it's like a lot lighter, it's going to be somewhere in between there. But yeah, so by adding in the cacao powder, it gives it that little bit of texture, which is really nice. It kind of almost tastes like a milkshake in a way.
So really, what you're aiming for, what you're doing with the cacao is to essentially add the texture that milk normally does, the texture and flavor that milk normally does, while still using oat milk.
To an extent, yeah, that is one of our goals there. And again, that's going to be very different to our vanilla oat milk latte. And also, just a little bit of a reveal here, we are hoping to release a black cold brew coffee. So with no oat milk, 0 sugar. I think it's only going to be 15 calories. And we're hoping to release that in the next couple of months. And that one's going to be very light, like very, very, if we're taking a look at like a milkshake versus like water, it's going to be, much closer to that water side as opposed to our chocolate cereal milk latte, which is closer to that milkshake side.
Wow, thank you so much for an overview of the flavor profiles and for the tidbit or the preview of your next flavor. Hopefully we'll have you on for that launch of the next flavor. That will be fun. In the meantime, I do want to go back still within the product description and the product mission. I want to learn more about Jitterless. You explained to me your method of coming up with Jitterless coffee, where you keep the caffeine and you just take away the stuff that causes the jitters, essentially. And this might go a little bit more into the origin story, but how is it that you're uniquely able to market that specific idea?
Mm-hmm.
I assume many other companies can make jitterless coffee. What are you doing differently?
Yeah, so I'll kind of just jump in to the science a little bit of how this really works. So basically, caffeine on its own is a vasoconstrictor. So it's actually constricting your blood vessels, making it so that your heart has to pump harder to get blood and oxygen flow throughout your body and into your extremities. So when you experience those jitters, the shakes, it's because not enough oxygen is reaching your fingers or your extremities, your feet, your hands. You start getting a little shaky. But what we do is we add in those active ingredients from green tea and matcha, which are L-theanine, ginseng, and green tea leaf extract. And at the right amount and at the right ratio to caffeine, which is proprietary, so I won't be sharing that. But at that right amount, you see these vasodilating effects. So your heart goes back to resting rate. It doesn't have to beat hard to get oxygen and blood throughout your body. So your body feels like it's at rest. It feels like it's at homeostasis. And this provides calming and soothing effects for your body, right? So that is the jitterless component. There's also a crashless component that I can go into later, but you kind of just asked for the jitterless part, so I'll just give you that for now. And what we're able to do, and we have actually trademarks on jitterless coffee, jitterless energy, coffee without the jitters, because we're very confident in the jitterless coffee revolution. People associate jitters with feelings of anxiety, things that typically no one wants. You don't want to drink coffee and feel anxious. That's not why we drink coffee. Maybe it is for some people, but for most people, they want to drink coffee to be productive, to be full of energy, to even maybe be happy, right? So you don't want these things to be raining on your parade. So that's why we really have kind of gone gung-ho with jitterless, because jitterless is the negation of these negative effects that we just don't want from coffee.
Cool. I'm not that into science, or I'm not able to delve that much into it. So that was definitely a little bit above my pay grade. However, I do appreciate that what I did take from it is that you were essentially what causes the jitters is the deprivation of oxygen that comes with the coffee, and you're able to add certain elements to remove those issues of the deprivation of oxygen, so the oxygen is still flowing freely. Did I get that?
Yeah, to an extent. And also just one piece that you didn't touch on is your heart not having to work overtime to make sure that oxygen is reaching those extremities. So it kind of, when you have caffeine, it's almost putting your body into this stressful situation. You're getting into this fight or flight feeling. But when you add the calming and soothing effects of tea, it brings you back to base. It brings you back to that homeostasis. So you're able to feel relaxed, calm, but also energized and ready to take on your day.
Nice. And I love how you said, like, we don't drink coffee to make us anxious.
I mean, I don't. I don't know about you.
I definitely don't.
Yeah.
Now, let's dive into the crashless part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, a little bit of science. I'll keep it brief just because I understand it's above your pay grade. But basically, coffee doesn't actually give you energy. That's a common misconception. Coffee just doesn't make you tired. So there are things in your body called adenosine and adenosine receptors. And adenosine is the thing that actually makes you tired. It makes you feel lethargic. So what happens
Where is it in my body?
It's all over your body. Yeah, it's in your brain for the most part. But basically what coffee does, and caffeine is an antagonist to those adenosine receptors. So it'll, like, imagine that this is a caffeine and this is an adenosine receptor. The caffeine will get lodged in the adenosine receptor so that the adenosine cannot bind to the adenosine receptor and make you tired. So really what caffeine is doing is just blocking the ability for you to get tired. It doesn't actually give you energy, right? It's just taking away those feelings of being tired. So what ends up happening is when you drink caffeine, maybe the caffeine will be in that adenosine receptor for maybe 2 hours, and then it will fade. But in the meantime, all of your adenosine is getting built up. It doesn't stop. The production of adenosine doesn't stop. And then after 2 hours, all of a sudden, boom, you're hit with a flood of adenosine. And then you get really, really tired. Your energy, it peaks, and then it goes crashing down, maybe like 2 or 3 hours after you drink coffee. But what we do is we've been able to subsidize the kind of like helping the receptors not be fully targeted by the caffeine, so that there's a very steady flow of adenosine as well in the background. And it's a lot of science going into this. And we did work with food chemists and scientists for about 6 months on this problem. But those 3 active ingredients from tea certainly do help. So long story short, you feel the energy. It's not like an insane uptick in energy, but you feel this nice uplifting effect of energy. And then it kind of just feels like this, gradual energy, and it doesn't just crash. So when I drink a Quokka Brew, I'll drink it maybe midday, and I'll have good energy levels for like the next 6 hours or so. And there's no steady crash at the very end. I just feel, I'm good. I haven't crashed with my energy. And I don't feel like manic or crazy when the energy is going up either. It's kind of like just a more stable energy.
I have a few questions. One is, if it's not giving me crashes and not making me jitters, is there a problem with taking too much caffeine?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's always an issue of doing too much of anything, especially caffeine. So, caffeine, I believe I looked this up not super recently just because I was curious. I was like, what's the LD50 of caffeine? And for those of you that don't know what LD50 is, it means lethal dose for 50% of the population. So, the lethal dose for 50% of the population for caffeine, I believe, was around that 30 cups of coffee mark. So if each cup is about 100 milligrams of caffeine, 30 times 100, you're looking at a lot of caffeine there, right? It's like 3,000 milligrams of caffeine. That's insane. Like, there's no time in your life that you would or should be drinking that much caffeine. But I believe it's that amount. So really, the only concern about drinking too much coffee, or in this case, drinking too many Quokka brews, is just getting to that level of milligrams of caffeine in your blood. I think it's very dangerous for your heart. I think your heart could potentially give out in that situation. So for those of you listening, just be careful that when you are drinking caffeine, that you're being very mindful of how much you're intaking, because if you just keep going, it could be very negative to your heart.
So the challenge is that with other coffees, you get the jitters, you get the crashes, you just stop. Maybe the crash, it convinces you to take more.
Yeah.
But with the jitters, that actually stops people from going more. With your caffeine, no jitters, no crash. You could just keep on going. So, but it sounds like you need a lot.
Yeah, you need a lot. I mean, you need to drink a lot of Quokka Brew in order to get to that amount. I believe one of my friends drank, I think it was like 6 Quokka Brews in one go, and he was feeling great. But I wouldn't recommend it, right? Like, viewer discretion to advise.
Yeah. Well, now, would you consider your company a science company or a coffee company?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say it's almost a little bit of both, right? Because coffee on its own is a science. There is a science to coffee. If you ask anyone that's really into coffee, it is an art and it is a science. But with Quokka Brew, I think it even goes a step further in that science, because we have been experiencing these problems with coffee for hundreds of years, or people have been experiencing these problems for hundreds of years potentially. And there hasn't been really too many good solutions to it. There's been maybe 1 or 2 other companies that have attempted to create a more functional coffee, or a coffee that will just make you feel better. But there hasn't been any company to claim that their coffee is the market's first jitterless and crashless coffee, right? Coffee that is fully jitterless, that you can drink, you'll feel great, you won't have to suffer these negative effects. So I do think it is a coffee company, but it also is a science company as well.
So you're really at that bridge, at that cutting edge.
Yeah, I mean, we're here to innovate the coffee market, right? We're here to revolutionize, and we did work with scientists, chemists, for a very long time, over 6 months, in developing our product. So it did take a lot of science to get into there and make sure that people, when they do drink it, that we're staying true to our word, that it is jitterless and it is indeed crashless.
Where is your products currently available?
Yeah, so you can find Quokka Brew on our website at quokkabrew.com. You can use Joe15 for 15% off. You can find us on Amazon. So if you have Prime, that's free 1-day shipping. And if you're in San Diego, we're in Seaside Market. We're in a bunch of other smaller places, just mom and pop stores around San Diego, about 25 stores. In LA, we're in Air One. There's about 7 locations. And then in San Francisco and in the Bay Area, we're in Berkeley Bowl, and a lot of other, smaller locations around SF and the Bay Area. But the best way to find out where you can find us, if you wanted to find us in retail, was to go to our website, quokkabrew.com. We have a store locator for you to find all of the locations that we're stocked in.
And are you only in stores on the West Coast, or you're starting to have national distribution?
For right now, we're focusing on the West Coast expansion. And something that I actually didn't mention is we're also starting to expand onto college campuses. So if you're a student, you go to UC Berkeley, UC San Diego, Cal Poly SLO, UC Irvine, UC Santa Barbara, a couple others that I won't mention right now. You can actually find us in your student store. So if you have dining dollars, that's a great place to find us as well.
What's the retail price of your product, and how does it compare with other quote unquote competitors in the marketplace?
Yeah, so you can roughly generally find us in retail for about $3.99. It's very competitive with other coffees. So if you're just taking a look at La Colombe, Rise, they're going to be a little bit cheaper. But then if you take a look at premium quality coffees or functional coffees like Super Coffee, Bulletproof Coffee, these are the functional coffees. And then you have like Trident Coffee, Later Days, some of these premium brands. Those are going to be more in the $4, maybe even $5 mark. So we're really well situated right in the middle there. We do consider ourselves a premium coffee and a functional coffee. So it actually checks both of those boxes. And by still being at $3.99, it's very competitive, very reasonable.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't mention, but you really play into the functional space. That whole space has really exploded.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, it's a big space and it's getting bigger every year.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that segment. I feel like we really, really covered the brand mission. We covered your products and services, products,
Mm-hmm.
not services, your products, and really the blend of the science behind your products, and even where we could find it online. And I really appreciate that you did tell me before that you made a special code for our audience. That's Joe15, JOE15, for a 15% discount. We really, really appreciate that. Now I want to go to the origin story. I know you're part of the founding team. I actually stumbled upon you from some early uh, crowdfunding campaign, which I actually contributed to, so that was fun.
Thank you.
I don't know how I came across it. I think one of the co-founders, I saw it on their LinkedIn, and it really, really intrigued me. But I want to hear more about the origin story and your role within the origin story of the brand.
Yeah, definitely. So it was 2019. We're at UC Berkeley. We're students taking finals, drinking lots of coffee, energy drinks, other unhealthy things to help us study and really just make sure that we're performing at our highest level. Because as you may be aware, Berkeley and just in general, university finals are very competitive. It's intense. People burrow in the libraries for weeks on end just to, get a C potentially, or B or an A, hopefully. And it's not a great time to be alive, for lack of a better word. It's pretty bad. But what's even worse is the things we will do to our body just to get that edge, right? Drinking cups of coffee, downing Monsters, Red Bulls, things that are loaded with sugar and things that you can't even pronounce. And then, other people taking maybe even prescription medications just to get that edge in studies, and then feeling the negative results the next day. It's just awful, right? It's not great. So we're studying, we're drinking coffee, energy drinks, feeling terrible, and then also not performing at optimal level. And we thought to ourselves, there has to be a better way. There has to be something that we can drink coffee, because we all love coffee, everyone loves coffee, but something that we can drink that will make us feel good for drinking it, because it's healthy. Like, you can drink it, it doesn't make your body feel bad. It's low in sugar, low in calories, all the ingredients you can pronounce. But then also it's going to make you perform at your best. It's going to make you really feel like, okay, there is no like higher level that I could be performing at right now, because I have all of the energy that I need. I have all of the energy, I have all of the focus, I have the mental clarity. I can get this done. And so at that point, we started to look at the market and see, okay, is there anything out there that is comparable to what we want? There were a couple. There was like Bulletproof Coffee, Super Coffee. There was like a couple other, like Optimind and Nootropics. Nootropics were kind of getting big, and they kind of are still a little bit big. But we tried all of them. Nothing was really working, right? The Nootropics did not work for me. Super Coffee, Bulletproof Coffee, I really didn't like, and this is personal, right? But I personally didn't like the way that they tasted, and therefore I didn't want to be drinking it. So I felt like I was always sacrificing something I like by, finding these products. I was sacrificing taste. The effects weren't really good. It just wasn't great. From there, we decided to start experimenting ourselves. So at this point, we started working with chemists and food scientists for about 6 months to perfect the Quokka Jitterless blend that we currently now use in all Quokka Brew products. We were testing it on ourselves, on some friends. We did a double-blind study with 1,800 student participants, and we found that, Quokka Brew, this really works. This is jitterless, it's crashless, it tastes amazing, and it gives you all of the energy, mental clarity, and focus that you need to get your studies done. And at this stage, we're still in Berkeley. We're seniors at this time. We start selling it to students on campus. They start to love it. They start telling their friends about it. Word of mouth is, wow, there's like this thing that's called liquid Adderall is what people were calling it. And they were taking it to the library, drinking it all the time. And from Berkeley, we started to move to other campuses like UC Santa Barbara, Cal Poly SLO, and it started to get really big there too. People could not get enough of it. And at this point, it's not scalable. We're just making it. We're cranking out a bunch every single night. And eventually we're like, okay, how can we scale this? How can we actually take it one step further? And that's where you come in, Joe. You helped us crowdfunding. So thank you very much. We did a pre-sale for our canned product. So the product in a fully scalable can that's shelf stable that we can actually distribute. And we tried to only raise $15,000 because with these crowdfunding campaigns, if you don't hit your goal, you don't keep any of the money. So that's something for all you other entrepreneurs out there that are looking to do crowdfunding. Set the bar low, just because if you don't hit it, you walk away with nothing. That kind of sucks. We were able to hit that $15,000 mark within 3 hours. And by the end of the month, we were able to raise $72,000 in pre-sales. So these are all people that are buying our product months in advance. And that is what really helped us in doing that first batch run. And that was about 2 years ago now. So it's, we've come a very long way since then. And the team, there's 5 of us. We're the founding team. It's me. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer. Then we have Miguel, who's our Creative Director. We have Kevin, who's our Chief Operating Officer. And then we have our co-founders and CEOs, George and Ofek. And that is the founding team. And we do this full time.
There's a lot to unpack there. And thank you so much for that overview.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to the beginning, the origins, even before you started the crowdfunding campaign.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you go from? Was it the entire founding team with you when you started?
So no, it was just George and Ofek at the very beginning. They founded the idea. But then once it started to get to the selling portion, or when we were, finalizing the actual jitterless aspects and working with the food chemists and started to move away into selling it, that's when I was there, Kevin was there, and we actually had a couple other team members at that time that were very pivotal in the early success of the company. And then eventually towards the end of our college experience, so maybe like 6 months before we actually graduated from UC Berkeley, Miguel joined the team as our creative director. And if you go back to our Instagram and you just scroll down all the way to the bottom, you'll see what our brand looked like before Miguel joined and once Miguel joined. And we're very grateful to the founding team for just giving this brand everything that we got, because without the people, there's really nothing there.
Cool. And when it started with George and Ofek, they started it really for themselves. Did they initially think that they wanted to bring it to market, or it was totally just a solution for themselves?
Yeah, I think initially it was a solution for themselves. And once, we started to realize how much people loved it, and that's the point that I joined in. I saw just like how easily adopted this became. we really were like, okay, we have something here. We have something that we can scale, right? Before it was just kind of messing around to see if we can have something that'll help us with our studies and potentially our friends. Yeah.
Wow, such a fascinating story. Were you what were you all studying in college in Berkeley?
Yeah. So I studied business administration at Haas. Also, OFEC did business administration at Haas. I also did another major, so I double majored in that and also in cognitive science. And George and Kevin did cognitive science, and then Miguel did architecture. Funny enough, so definitely a lot of design components there.
Yeah, so it was a little bit varied in terms of the founding team. It wasn't like you were all studying the same things. Were you all friends before you started the company together?
Yeah, so George and Ofek have been friends since they were kids. Ofek came to America from Israel when he was like 10, 11, and George was one of his first friends. So George and Ofek go way back. I met Ofek our freshman year in 2016 at UC Berkeley, and we became fast friends. And then Kevin and Miguel were both in Sigma Nu, so that's in George's fraternity. So that's kind of how we all met each other.
Cool. How now? Initially, you're making it yourselves, or George and Ofek at least are making it themselves. How much did it cost to create the? How much did it cost for them to? And whatever you don't mind sharing or whatever how much did it cost to create those first prototypes that they were making for themselves?
Yeah, so initially we were buying the glass. They were in glass bottles. They were like really small, 4-ounce glass bottles. A lot of people said it looked like a medicine, like a little medicine jar. And we would just slap stickers on them. So the first iteration was just these glass bottles, stickers, cap, and we were making it by hand in an FDA regulated facility that we were able to use each night. And that was the product. And we just kept it refrigerated. It had like a 3-week shelf life. So really, really short shelf life. We were making it and selling it, making it and selling it. And we pretty much did that every single night until we realized that, we just couldn't keep up with the demand.
So that was already when you were starting to bring it to market.
Correct.
How long between they came up with this formula to start bringing it to market in that way?
Yeah, so they came up with this whole idea junior year of college. So I believe in 2019. And then it took about 6 months to develop it. And during that 6 months, I was actually studying abroad in the Netherlands. So I was in the Netherlands, I was studying abroad, having myself a great time. I came back to America for that summer, and I actually had a summer internship at Monster Energy in their headquarters in Corona. And I learned a lot about the energy sector, about the beverage sector. And it was really funny because when I came back to campus, I was talking to OFEC. This idea was circulating. They were creating the prototypes, all that stuff, just about starting to sell it on campus. And that's when I started to say like, wow, like this is so funny. Like I'm just coming back from this energy drink internship. You guys are creating this energy drink. Let's see like, what we can do with this. So yeah, and from there, that's when we really started selling it, right? It was at the beginning of our senior year, going 2019 into 2020. That's when it really started to take off at Berkeley. But before then was really just prototyping, testing, making sure it really did what we said it was going to do.
How did you get your first few buyers? Do you remember?
Yeah, we just set up a table and started selling it around Berkeley. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that. Oops, but that's what we did. And students came over. They gave us some cash for a coffee so that they could go drink it at the library. We would be there the next day. People would come back and be like, "Whoa, like that stuff really worked. Like, can I get 20?" And from there, we were like, "Whoa, like okay, people really love this stuff." And our retention rate was insane. It was through the roof. People, I think, 60, 70% of people that bought and drank the product came back and bought more. So people were loving it. And eventually, I think we were ubiquitous within that first couple of months. I think everyone at UC Berkeley knew about Quokka Brew.
Wow, that's an amazing story. At that point, you already worked with the food chemist?
Yeah, we have already, that was kind of behind us at that point. We were, fully ready to go to market because we had the exact ratio of caffeine to these three other ingredients that we were tweaking for about 6 months before that.
How do you know how you found the food chemist and how you are so confident that you can actually pull this off? It sounds pretty crazy.
Yeah, so that's the one benefit of going to UC Berkeley is there are a lot of exceptional people that go to that school, not only students but also professors, TAs, people that are very interested in their fields, very good at what they do, and very happy to help. So we're very grateful to all the help that we got from the students, the TAs, the teachers, professors at UC Berkeley. So big shout out there.
Nice. Wow. That's an amazing story. Now, how did it go from selling at a table at Berkeley with a great retention rate, doing everything yourselves, to now being on the store shelf in a can?
Yeah, so there was a big transition there. We obviously knew that the glass bottles that we had were not scalable. Like they only had a 2-3 week shelf life. Once we got into the cans, that's a year shelf life, 12 months shelf life, unrefrigerated. So that makes our logistics a lot easier. We have a long time to sell it. But basically what that first run enabled us to do was to get enough product for all the people that pre-ordered, but also even more product to sell in retail on our website. And just as a reminder here, it was COVID. It was like peak COVID when we did this. So we weren't going into retail. We were doing everything online. And that actually gave us an opportunity to really focus on our digital presence, which looking back is almost a blessing in disguise, because otherwise we would have just been pursuing in-person stuff just like we were doing before the pandemic hit. Before the pandemic hit, we were 100% in person. We were doing everything in person. And then overnight, we were going from this much revenue all the way up here to like no revenue at all. And it was really scary. We thought we were going to lose our business. But that's when we made the transition. We transitioned from those glass bottles to those cans and started going really gung-ho online. And that was kind of the initial first step, was just building out that online presence.
So there was a time right when COVID started, between ceasing production of the glass bottles until getting it produced by the manufacturer, by the facility, that Quokka Brew was not available.
That is correct. Yeah, there was a solid. So obviously coronavirus started in March, and then in July is when we ran, July or August. Somewhere around there, just like at the end of summer, that we started our crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo. And then 3 months after that, 4 months after that, in October, November, December is when we were producing our product and getting them shipped out. So our product wasn't available for about 9 months. There was like a 9-month window where Quokka Brew was just a name. We didn't really have anything to provide. And it was actually a very scary time. We were like, wow, like what's going on right now? But it gave us a lot of time to hone in, again, on that online presence, on our brand, on our plans, on our networking. It gave us a lot of time to breathe, actually, as a company, which I think, looking back, was very important.
So how did you go about, a few things I'm curious about. How did you go about finding the facility, choosing the facility, how big of a production run to run? And what probably is the pre-question to that is, there are so many ways to market. There's so many ways to get in front of people. Why did you choose crowdfunding?
Yeah, so just to answer that first question there, the facility, we went through a lot of facilities. We basically checked out every single one in America, and we found the one that had just the right minimum order quantity, had really good partners. So they were partnered with brands that we loved and saw on the shelves. And so we decided to go with one in particular that we believe does the best quality. They do a lot of other beverages and coffees in our space already that we love. So we were very confident with their capabilities. And that first production run, we just did 14,000 cans. So it wasn't a giant production run. It was really just at their minimum order quantity of what we were able to do there. And this production facility can do up to like 300,000 cans in a single day. So we were really like their smallest person by far, their smallest company by far. And we almost had to convince them to bring us on because they didn't want to bring us on. They're like, you guys aren't going to provide us really any business. Why should we believe in you guys? And we convinced them like, hey, we are doing something here. Like, just check out our Indiegogo. Like, people believe in us. They want to see this product. And we have a lot of room to grow. And we've, henceforth grown a lot with them. So, they definitely took a gamble on us, but I think it really paid off for them. And then to answer your next question is, why did we decide to do a crowdfunding campaign? First of all, I think it's a lot better than just taking money, like selling a portion of your company, because it's a marketing experience. We're actually bringing people into the fold and building out this grassroots community surrounding our mission to revolutionize the coffee industry. And, yes, we were able to raise money and kickstart our company, but at the end of the day, we were also able to raise awareness. Like people like you found out about our company from that Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign. So it was really also a great marketing initiative.
Cool. So you said you showed the facility, the Indiegogo campaign to show how much momentum you have. Did you, so that sounds like you already started the campaign before knowing what facility you had. How were you confident enough to do that you would actually find someone to be able to produce what you wanted?
Yeah, so we were already in talks with them, but it wasn't finalized, right? So you're right, there was a giant risk being taken to do what, to raise all this money without having the production side finalized. But that was a risk we were willing to take because we were so confident that we could get it done. And that's exactly what we did. We raised that money. We showed that people trusted and, that really wanted this product. And we were able to partner, therefore, with the best people that we thought we could partner with. And again, we were going to always produce the coffee. Like, we weren't just going to take people's money. Like, we had other backups, but we went with the best, first option of choice for production. If those people didn't want us, we had all the way up to Plan Z. We had so many people in the pipeline that we were talking to. It was never going to be like, oh, we're not going to be able to produce. It was just, we aren't going to be able to produce with our first choice, which we were able to do. So we got very lucky there.
Cool. Now, what was the feedback, I'll ask very bluntly, what was the difference between the taste of the first batches by hand and the actual cans?
Yeah, so the first batches by hand tasted amazing because we were able to source our ingredients directly. We were able to, taste everything. Like, we were able to make it, taste it, and be like, oh, we like this, we don't like that, let's change it. But when you do a commercially viable product, you have a commercial formulation, and it's very, very, very scientific. If you change one thing, it changes everything. You're gonna have to change the whole formulation. So with that in mind, our first, batches that were in those glass bottles tasted really, really good. And our first batch in the can tasted really, really bad. It did not taste very good. And we got, some positive feedback. I guess some people actually did like it. For the most part, it was pretty negative feedback. And we were really scared as a company. We're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like, this did not turn out the way that we wanted it to. We actually signed off with our commercial formulation after trying it, saying like, oh, this tastes amazing. But then when it went to production, when it went to scale, it didn't taste like that. And it was kind of a shock to us. It didn't line up. So we were very taken aback because it didn't taste very good. We got a lot of feedback, which, is why we're so grateful to our community, because they didn't just abandon us. They were like, hey guys, we really love this mission, but this one did not taste good. And here's why. Here's some constructive criticism. And that was amazing just to see that support from our community. And we took all of that constructive criticism, went back to our commercial formulator, and perfected it over 6 months. Again, or even I think it was more. It might have been even 7 months to go from version 1 to version 2. And then we went to version 2 in our vanilla oat milk latte. And that one, I can confidently say, tasted significantly better. We sent that one out to every single person again for free just to try it. And we wanted to get their feedback again. And the feedback was like night and day. It was like maybe 10% of people saying that they liked it before to about like 80, 90% of people saying that they liked it after. And those numbers, like, it's very hard to get even past like 50%, right? Because taste preference is variable. But we got an insanely good response. And from there, we actually even iterated it one more time to version 3 because we thought we could get it even better. And we did. We sent that back. We got some responses, and people liked it even better than version 2. So we're at a stage right now. We're at version 3 with our vanilla oat milk latte, still version 1 with chocolate, cereal milk latte, because to be honest, I think we hit it out of the park on the first time. But that's, I think, very indicative of our company. We are not willing to settle. We want to make our products as good as possible because we have people that really believe in this product, not just for the brand, but for the effects that it's providing. It's revolutionizing the coffee industry in a very positive way. And we want to make it as enjoyable as possible for people. We want people to drink it and love every single sip.
Wow, that's amazing. What I also like is that you sent out the Indiegogo, you sent out the products, and it, you admitted it wasn't the flavor that you envisioned. It wasn't the flavor that you actually tasted when you did the sampling from that same facility. So it's tough to even know. It's like it's one of those things you can only know once you're in the business long enough.
Yeah, it's tough, and especially when you're doing smaller batches, things don't scale perfectly. So when you start to do very, very big batches, you start to work in a different scale, and those scales are easier to kind of figure out from like taste to finished product. But with the smaller batches on an industrial level, it's really hard. Like you're going to get something from your formulator. It's going to taste a certain way. And then all of a sudden it's going to go through your high pressure pasteurization or retort or however you're doing it. And it's going to taste very different. So it was a shock to us. It was something that we were kind of expecting, but not to the degree that it actually took place. And it could have been a brand shattering experience. Like this could have ended the brand for, if we weren't able to learn from it, or if we weren't able to pivot or to admit our fault, then it could have actually just ended the company right there. But I think this was a very good learning experience for us. And I think from there, we've taken a lot of really, really important lessons with us from the production side that we've been able to leverage.
I want to go back to that time. Did you think your brand was over at that point?
So I've never thought that the brand would be over at any point during the journey because I think I'm very positive in that way. I just try to look on the bright side, but it was very scary. It was a point where I was like, wow, like this is kind of frightening. Like what exactly do we do here? How do we grow from this? And really the growth came, as I said before, from just getting that feedback and actually using it as an excuse to get closer with our consumers, with our community.
I love it. You actually turned it into positive, using that as an excuse to get closer, using that as an excuse. Oh, we did this. We didn't expect this to happen. Could you tell us what to do? Yeah. So how did you relate that to the consumer? You just sent them emails and sent them copy like that?
Pretty much. We basically made a type form questionnaire, sent it out to everyone saying like, hey, we realize that this is not as good as where we want it to be. And I'm sure you realize that as well. And we just want to be completely transparent with you here. And we want to receive your feedback because like we actually care. Like we're not just doing this to make a product, but we want to make a good product. We want to make something that you enjoy. So please let us know what you think, how we can improve it, and we are going to do our best to improve it. And maybe there was a lot of doubt in the company at that point. Maybe people were like, "Oh, Quokka Brew, that product sucks," like blah blah blah, all that stuff. But we actually did. We took that feedback, and it took us, it did take us like half a year to implement, but we did it. And then eventually, we sent everyone back product for free, saying like, hey, this is the new product. We took your feedback and we actually listened to it. And now here, we would love to hear your feedback again. And that second time is when people realize like, wow, this company really cares about us. Like they really want to provide something that we're going to enjoy. And I think that that resonates in our brand. You know, we're a very authentic brand, and we try to cater, you know, at the end of the day, it's all about the consumer, right? Like we make this brand for them. And if they don't like it, that's not good for us and it's not good for them. So yeah, that's kind of how we took it and ran with it.
Did you give everybody the same amount they ordered from the first batch, or you just gave them a few samples?
We just gave them a few samples, just because we at that stage we just weren't able to reimburse everyone like with the full amount that they previously ordered, which is unfortunate. But we did give them samples, and we did give them heavy discounts if they wanted to order more. And all these people are a part of our like day one, you know, community, and we do give them the opportunity to try our new products out first. We give them like priority for all of the wait lists. If there's exclusive merch, they have priority to order it before every single other person. So there are perks with being a part of the community that I definitely think are well worth, you know, the initial not getting exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I was essentially wondering, like, how do you make sure that that could bankrupt a company to just have to send them all new products? But it sounds like you figured out financially what you were able to, and you really drew them into your community. I was part of the first batch. I don't remember that whole. I wasn't always monitoring every email, but I do get those text messages every once in a while about trying a new product. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. I want to go back to how you brought it to market. Do you remember how many orders you had with the first Indiegogo?
Yeah, so that was about 1,200 orders. Yeah, 1,200 people had ordered. And then that was only for half of the amount that we were able to actually produce. And then the other half we sold online through our website.
You sold online, and I assume that was a lot of people that knew about it through the Indiegogo. Did you do any other forms of marketing at that time?
Yeah, we were, you know, marketing mostly to students. That's our primary demographic is college students. So we were really, you know, pushing it on college campus. I guess it was during COVID, so we weren't on college campuses, but we were going through college channels. So like clubs, organizations, sending out discount codes, doing like virtual Zoom meetings with our ambassadors, their clubs, organizations, all that different type of stuff. Yeah.
So you had an ambassador program.
Yes, yeah, we did. So we had an ambassador program before the pandemic hit. We had about 50 or so students, brand ambassadors at UC Berkeley that were promoting the brand on campus. We also built one at Cal Poly Sloan and UC Santa Barbara. But then all of a sudden, COVID hit. So we kind of put it on pause. But then when we realized we weren't going to be going back to campus the following year, we still wanted to have an ambassador program. So we still had one. It was virtual. It was interesting for sure. You know, it wasn't easy necessarily, but we still made it happen.
What was could you tell us a little bit more about the ambassador program? Were they paid? Was it for swag? What was in it for them, and what were they supposed to do?
Yeah, so the brand ambassador program then, and we've iterated it to a point where it's kind of unrecognizable now, but then it was really about being a part of the Quokka Brew community. So each campus would have about 10, some up to even 30 students. They would have socials, they would have hangouts, they would get free coffee. That was like I think, you know, for a lot of people, what they were really excited about. They would get free merch. And we would have these awesome cross-campus meetings where everyone from all the different schools would come and network. And we would have like, you know, learnings from the company, startup learnings. Like if you wanted to be an entrepreneur, you could get dialed into this startup and see how it works from the inside out. But then also have us as resources, as, you know, entrepreneurial resources to help in, you know, your potential endeavors as well. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's free product, free merch, the experience of what it's like to work for a very fast growing startup, and then also that network of students that are surrounding the brand.
Got you. So they essentially become the hub, that community hub for
Right.
Quokka, based on Quokka.
Yeah, and then also when we started to come back to college or back to campus, we were doing a lot of in-person initiatives. So doing a lot of tabling sessions, sampling out the product in and around campus, going to different events like philanthropy events, fraternity, sorority events, club events, sponsoring those with free coffee, setting up tables, giving out samples, all that fun stuff.
Wow, you really took us through. I think we've almost covered. I still want to get to the last part, or the almost last part. I'm curious how your marketing has evolved, and what are you primarily doing today?
Yeah. So we're doing similar stuff, but our go-to-market strategy has changed in I think a very, very positive way. So before, our market strategy was get big on these college campuses, become ubiquitous, just like we did at Berkeley, Cal Poly SLO, Santa Barbara. We had a very good working model, and it was working for other campuses as well. But our primary strategy was to get into the retail stores surrounding the college campus, so that people heard about us and they wanted to pick us up. They could go to a store surrounding the college campus and pick us up. It was working. It was definitely, not the volumes that we wanted to see or that we knew we could see. But then all of a sudden, we started to get accepted into the college campus stores themselves. So the on-campus stores. And that's when things started to really blow up. Because at Cal Poly SLO, that was the first campus that we got accepted into. Let's just say at a normal store surrounding campus, maybe we were doing like 4 cases of 12 per month, right? So like a case per week, which is good. In relation to other beverages, it's actually amazing. But when we got onto the campus stores, we started doing 200 cases every 2 weeks, like 100 cases a week, which is like unheard of, right? So we were outpacing Starbucks, Red Bull. The only other brand that was selling better than us in the energy sector was Yerba Mate in these campus stores. So how we transitioned that over to our brand ambassador program, we started to actually just take only a couple students, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, to become campus leaders. And their main job is to go to these different fraternity, sorority meetings, club meetings, events, and talk about Quokka Brew and let people know, hey, this is Quokka Brew. This is why you should care. It's a revolutionary product that will help you study for longer hours in the library, made by students, for students. But also, you can find it at the campus store, and you can use dining dollars. So, that's also really a huge bonus for a lot of students is, if you're a freshman, you have to have dining dollars. You can spend it on Quokka Brew.
I want to go a little bit previously. I didn't, for some reason, I forgot to ask this when we were discussing the Indiegogo. But was there an initial strategy to get people to your Indiegogo, or was it just the same grassroots stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was really driven by our ambassador program at the time. We had brand ambassadors sending out templates that we had created to their friends, family, letting them know about this product that they've been involved with for the last maybe half year, semester as a brand ambassador, and letting them know, hey, you can pre-order yours through this Indiegogo. So that was one funnel that we were using. We were also promoting it on social media. We were doing some paid advertising. And we actually also had an agreement with Indiegogo themselves saying that if we got past a certain amount, that they would help us market it for us. So I believe that amount was like $30,000, I believe. I forgot the exact amount. It's been a while. But they said, like, we will send out an email blast on your behalf to help promote it and put it on our social media as well. And that's exactly what they did. So I think it kind of started from this grassroots word of mouth, and then it kind of got a lot more viral from there.
What was in it for the brand ambassadors to promote it? I understand in campus events, they're essentially becoming the leader in the space.
Mm-hmm.
But to send to their neighbors, friends, etc., was there an incentive, or it was totally organic?
Yeah, for the most part, it was organic, but there were incentives in place. Like if they had these little tracking codes, so UTM tracking links, we were able to see how many people actually pre-ordered from their link. And if they did a certain amount, they got a lot of free coffee, and they got shirts and all that different type of stuff. And I think the first place winner won some money, a monetary reward as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Back to the current go-to-market strategy. At what point did you get into other stores, not just for students, by students? I know you're in Erewhon. You mentioned quite a few other stores. How did that happen?
Yeah, so that has all happened through networking, through talking with different people in the space, with distributors, and seeing exactly how we can get into these stores. And in San Diego, we're in about 25 locations. I personally got us into all of those locations from literally just walking into the store with a can of Quokka Brew, saying, "Hey, can I talk to a decision maker?" And some people are really turned off by that. They're like, "Whoa, like get out of here! You didn't make an appointment," and that's fine. At this point, I have a pretty thick skin for that. But then a lot of people are like, "Wow, like this is so cool that you're taking the initiative. It's a local product. Let's try it out. What's the harm in trying it out?" And that's kind of what I always say. Like, hey, if it doesn't sell, you don't need to sell it. But if it does sell, we're both winning here. So might as well just give it a chance. And for most of the I would say like 90% of the places that we've tested out in are now been there for over a year because it just sells really well and people love it. And also just apart from that, we're also doing a lot of marketing initiatives in the stores. We do a lot of store demos and stuff like that just to promote the brand.
Okay, so you're not just leaving the store, you're also actually doing it. You're not just leaving it on the shelf. When you just leave it on the shelf, does that usually move, just not as fast at the pace you want? Or do you feel like you need the in-store demos to make it worth the investment?
So it's interesting because there are some stores that I've just put it in there and left it and it sold incredibly well, which is kind of a head scratcher for me. I'm not exactly sure how that's happening. Maybe it's because we have such a good retention rate. Like someone sees a new product, they're like, "Wow, new product, let me try it." And then now they're hooked, right? They're like, "Wow, I love this product. I'm going to keep going and getting it." I think that's where most of our success comes from. But then here in San Diego over the summer, we were doing a bunch of farmers markets. In LA, we were doing a bunch of farmers markets, also in San Francisco. So we were driving word of mouth there. We were also giving people these business cards with a QR code with a store locator and our website on the card. And then we also do these store demos where we actually stand outside of the store with our setup. We give out samples, let them know where it is in the store, and we tell them, "Hey, if you pick one up in the store, we'll give you one outside for free." So that's been a giant one. When we do that, we did that at Seaside Market here in San Diego, basically once a week for this whole summer. And we were able to do, just within like 3 hours of demoing, we were able to sell like 2 packs, like 24 cans in 3 hours. So, people were very, very willing to try it.
I just want to go through the logistics of that, because when you're in the store, you obviously, most demos in store are actually in store. When you're in the store, you can't really give them a free product. It's kind of weird. They go to the checkout and the brand gave me a free one. It's gonna throw everybody off. So it's cool that you do it outside, but the challenge with outside, especially in California, everybody's actually parking, so they're getting directly to the store. Are you getting in, like, are you right between their car and the store? Are you in the parking lot? How do you manage those logistics, or is every time different?
We're right at the entrance, so they have to pass by us. Yeah, we have the doors are right here, and we're right next to the door, so they kind of have to go past us in order to get in the store.
Now, at farmers markets, you're selling them besides sampling them.
Mhm.
Did you see it as aside from the brand awareness that you're going to get people for the long-term retention, do you see an actual profit from every farmers market, considering paying yourselves, etc.?
Yeah, no, the farmers markets over the course of the summer, we did not see a profit, but that's okay. It's a marketing expense, and we were able to generate revenue, right? And at this stage in our company, revenue is really the important metric. So it was, I think, a very good thing to do for the company because it drove a lot of word of mouth, a lot of marketing. People were starting to get introduced to this product. And we've been seeing actually not only an uptick in retail sales, but also an uptick in website and Amazon sales. And I think that a lot of that can be attributed to these farmers market marketing initiatives, store demos, all that type of stuff.
The reason why I'm asking you is because that's actually scalable nationwide.
Yeah, it is totally. I mean, farmers markets in certain places are more popular than others. Like in San Diego, LA, and San Francisco, just in California in general, farmers markets are very popular. I would have to do a little bit more market research to see how popular they are. Let's just say like in Arizona or Utah or somewhere like that.
Yeah, but even and there's also this whole new emerging trend of the pop-up shops that are
Totally.
always looking to do events.
Yeah, no, I mean, we love doing in-person events, not only because it's just for the most part, it's just a really good time to show the brand. Not just show the product, but really show the personality behind the brand. And we did have some interns this summer doing these farmers markets, and we had a pretty lengthy training at the very beginning because we wanted to make sure that this touch point with the brand is on brand, right? It's happy, it's fun, it's engaging, and that's really the most important part. I think everyone that came to stop by our table at a farmer's market, store demo, left feeling happier.
Cool. So it's not just about your product. It sounds like you really are, and this goes back to what you did with the first Indiegogo campaign, which wasn't the way you expected. You used it as an excuse to lean closer to your audience, closer to your consumer. You always want to bring your consumer into the experience of Quokka.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that has been our mission since day one, is to energize people without the negative side effects of caffeine so that they become their most productive, happiest self, just like the Quokka, which for those of you that don't know is the happiest animal on the planet. And there's more than one way to do that, right? Like you can energize someone with a product, but you can also energize someone by just engaging with them, face to face. And I think, during COVID, that was a huge thing that was lost in translation. And now that we're coming back from COVID, we're able to do that again. And I think people really appreciate it.
Wow. Now, were you when you wanted to get into stores, were you when you started getting into stores, was that a strategy that you were trying to get into stores? Stores were coming to you, a little bit of both. How did that happen?
Yeah. So in this industry, it's there's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem here. Is You need to get into stores, or you need to have a lot of stores in an area to get a distributor. But in order to get into a lot of stores, you need a distributor. So it's kind of like which one do I do first? And what you'll realize if you're starting from the ground up and you don't really have these connections like we really didn't, you can't just go to a distributor and be like, hey, carry our product. They'll be like, no. And that's what we did. They said no. And they said, okay, well, is there anything we can do to make you say yes? And they're like, yeah, like we're located here in San Diego. If you can get 30 stores, like we'll consider you. So then I went out and be like, okay, let's go find some stores. And that's what I did. I went, found stores, got into about 25, 30 stores, went back to the distributor, and then they said yes, right? So that's kind of what we had to do in San Diego, in LA, and San Francisco to build out our distribution. But yeah, that was kind of like the first step. But then once you have that distribution, the distributors obviously want you to sell well, and they want you to get into more stores. So they will actually do bidding on your behalf. They'll actually go into the store, be like, hey, we're carrying this new product. You obviously trust us. Like we know this sells well because we don't just work with you. We work with hundreds of other stores. Like you should carry this product. It'll do well here. And most of those people, most of those store owners will say yes to that. So that's kind of how we've been expanding in retail, since the initial push of just like actually going into the stores. And that's actually something that we still do. If there's a store that we really want, we'll still just go into the store. We'll find the decision maker and we'll actually push for it ourselves.
Wow. And where do you currently have distribution?
Yeah, so we have distribution throughout. In San Diego, we're in between distributors right now, but in LA, we have distribution. In San Francisco, we have a distribution. And then on these college campuses, we have distribution, right? Because we can't, for some of them, we can direct distribute, but for a lot of them, they go through UNFI. UNFI is a major distributor, one of the biggest distributors in the nation, and they carry Quokka Brew.
Wow, that was you really took us through your entire not just your brand but your entire go-to-market strategy. Are you looking to focus more in store, more e-commerce, or it doesn't make a difference however your consumer gets it?
Right now, we're really focusing on those college campuses. That is our really our niche that we're trying to carve out. So we're trying to get into all the college campuses in California, but then eventually nationwide, and that's right now our primary focus.
Got you. Wow. And how are you? How initially did you distribute the product? You did it yourselves. You dropped off all those cases in San Diego.
Yep, just drove to all the stores. Here you go.
Wow. Wow. That's an amazing story. Yeah, that's interesting. And it's interesting that like there's brokers, I mean, distributors really won't take you until you have demand, but once you have the demand and the momentum, then they'll start taking you. So it's really about the grassroots in the beginning for any product to really prove out the model before a distributor is willing to take you. I take it you don't have national distribution then. If I want to be a store in Idaho, I can't do that.
Yeah, as of right now, we don't, but we do have the capabilities to build that out. So we are in talks with other major distributors that said, hey, if you do have stores in a given area, we can discuss, what it would look like to bring you on for that area. But again, it's really not our primary focus. And since there is only 5 of us on the team, we're trying to really focus like all of our strength onto college campuses. So that's going to be our primary push for the time being. And then, if there are certain stores and bigger stores that want to bring us on through our current distributors, that is something that we can easily do.
How about trade shows? Have you been doing those or have you been shying away from those?
Yeah, no, it's funny that you asked. We actually just came back from a trade show up in Washington. It is a convention for universities to come and take a look at what new products they want to bring into their stores, into their cafeterias. And so we were there and we presented to a bunch of universities. And we actually were able to do some deals with some new universities that we're very excited about.
Wow. How about the other trade shows that are more less university specific and more whether it's plant-based or I know there's a coffee one coming up in New York in the coming weeks.
Yeah,
Those types.
there's like Expo West is like a really big one, obviously, in Anaheim. We did that as well. But yeah, for the most part, we're trying to just maintain that focus on college campuses. So we haven't really been doing too many shows, but if there's any good shows, definitely let me know.
For sure. Now, for a little bit of a personal question, I know I was able to confirm that your first batch was indeed not kosher certified, but was kosher. Is kosher certification on the horizon?
Look, I really hope so. I would love to have a kosher product, and I know you would love us to have a kosher product. So if we do it, it's going to be for you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you. One more time before I ask you the last question, I just want to thank everybody for one more time. That's what I want to say. Before I ask you the last question, I do want to I'm thankful to Gabe that he made a special code for our audience, Joe15, JOE15, for a 15% discount. I want to thank everybody who's listening on YouTube Live, LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and anybody who's watching or listening to the replays, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you can find the podcast app. This is episode 13 of the Brand Spotlight. And Gabe, just some closing remarks. Anything you want to share, and any parting words, and where can we find you?
Yeah, so Quokka Brew has been, a big portion of my career so far, and I'm just really happy to say that it's going well, and really just wanted to thank everyone that's out there. It's going well because of you guys, and I'm just really grateful to all of the support that we've gotten as a company, just to me personally. And, we're really trying to create something here. We're trying to create a product that is good for you, that makes you feel good, so that you don't have to sacrifice getting energy, but then also having all these negative side effects. So, first and foremost, just thank you to everyone that's believed in me, in Quokka Brew, in our mission. And thank you everyone that has helped get us to where we are today. All of our brand ambassadors, all of our interns, the early team members that are no longer involved. Like, thank you guys. And then a huge, huge shout out to my team. to Miguel, Kevin, Ofek, George. It's so awesome working with like your good friends, and it's just been one hell of a ride. So yeah, that's all I've got to say.
Awesome.